The city lights of Manhattan reflected in the polished marble floors of the Elysium Art Gallery. It was a night of celebration, the unveiling of the gallery's most prized acquisitions, masterpieces spanning centuries, each one a testament to human creativity. Guests mingled, champagne glasses clinked, and the subtle hum of conversations filled the air. Yet, amid the elegance and glamour, an invisible tension lingered, a shadow that no one could perceive. Benjamin Hart arrived quietly, blending into the crowd, his eyes scanning every detail. He wasn't here as a guest, he was here because the gallery's curator had called him with an urgent plea. Priceless paintings had disappeared overnight, removed from their frames without leaving a trace, and the police were baffled. Benjamin's first step was observation. He noted the positions of guards, the security cameras, and the layout of the exhibition halls. The entryways, the hallways, the display rooms, each was examined mentally, each potential vantage point calculated. Every employee's movements and interactions became part of an intricate puzzle that Benjamin intended to solve. He approached the curator, an anxious woman in her late 40s, who seemed both distraught and frustrated. "They were all gone," she whispered. "Not a single painting left. No alarms triggered. No forced entry. How is that even possible?" Benjamin listened intently, nodding. "Impossible only exists until someone finds the method," he replied softly, his gaze already sweeping the room again. Benjamin turned his attention to the remaining artworks and the security footage. Cameras were positioned to cover the main halls, yet all footage from the previous night appeared untouched. Nothing had been tampered with, nothing recorded. It was as though the paintings had vanished into thin air. But Benjamin had a trained eye, he knew the absence of evidence was often the greatest clue. He began interviewing the staff individually, noting every micro-expression, every hesitation, every involuntary gesture. The young night guard, confident under normal circumstances, subtly avoided eye contact. The assistant curator fidgeted when asked about the maintenance schedule. Benjamin catalogued everything mentally, aware that a single small slip could reveal the entire operation. Next, he examined the physical environment. No locks had been broken, no alarms disabled. Yet Benjamin noticed tiny details others overlooked, a slight scratch near a display case, the subtle misalignment of a frame, the faint dust trail along a rarely used corridor. These were the footprints of someone meticulous, someone who understood the gallery as intimately as Benjamin now did in minutes. Hours passed as he reconstructed the possible sequence of events. Someone had exploited the routine, the gaps in human attention, and the trust in technology. The abductor was patient, intelligent, and precise, a ghost among people, leaving almost no trace. But Benjamin's mind worked differently, patterns, behavior, and logic could reveal the invisible. By midnight, Benjamin had formed the first outline of the predator's method, a careful orchestration of human psychology, timing, and subtle physical actions. Whoever had stolen the paintings had underestimated one thing, Benjamin Hart's capacity to see the patterns hidden within chaos. The gala continued obliviously around him, but in the silent corridors and shadowed alcoves of the gallery, the hunt had begun. Benjamin Hart had traced the invisible thread, and he would follow it wherever it led, through darkness, deception, and the mind of a cunning thief. The city slept, unaware that a master detective had begun unraveling the greatest heist Manhattan had ever seen. The gallery was quiet now, its vibrant daytime energy replaced by a ghostly calm. Benjamin Hart moved deliberately along the polished floors, flashlight in hand, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. The stolen paintings weren't just objects, they were carefully chosen masterpieces, each with immense historical and financial value. The abductor had a plan, and Benjamin intended to reconstruct it step by step. He began with the security systems. Cameras, motion detectors, alarm sensors, all were operational, all untouched. Yet subtle discrepancies emerged. A few timestamps on motion logs didn't align perfectly with expected routines. A sensor in a storage room had recorded a brief fluctuation in activity at an unusual hour. Benjamin noted it immediately, aware that these minor anomalies often revealed the unseen presence of a meticulous intruder. Next, he turned to the staff. Each individual had their own schedule, habits, and behaviors. Benjamin interviewed them carefully, paying attention to the smallest cues, the inflection of a voice, the hesitation before answering, the direction of the eyes when a sensitive question was posed. The curator's assistant, usually composed and confident, faltered when asked about the maintenance closet. A minor slip, but enough for Benjamin to mark it as a point of interest. He retraced the paths employees had taken the previous evening, mapping out every corridor, every door, every alcove. It became clear that the abductor had a precise understanding of human routines. Small gaps in attention, overlooked corridors, brief moments when guards faced away, these were exploited to create the perfect window for action. Benjamin examined the physical environment with painstaking detail. A slightly scuffed corner near a rarely accessed side exit, dust patterns that suggested recent movement, and a misaligned frame, each subtle clue suggested the abductor's route. Unlike an ordinary thief, this person left no obvious evidence, only delicate footprints visible to a trained mind. Hours of meticulous analysis began to coalesce into a mental map. Benjamin could almost trace the abductor's steps in reverse, from the display hall, through side corridors, bypassing security blind spots, and finally reaching the storage rooms where the stolen artworks were temporarily kept. Each step revealed the predator's intelligence, patience, and audacity. But observation alone was not enough. Benjamin needed to anticipate the abductor's next moves. He set up controlled distractions, simulated security checks, and watched for subtle reactions among staff. Micro-expressions, small movements, and instinctive behaviors could all betray someone who thought they were invisible. As midnight approached, Benjamin realized that the theft was not random. The abductor had targeted specific works, suggesting knowledge of art history, market value, and the vulnerabilities of the gallery. This was a criminal who not only understood human behavior but also possessed specialized expertise. Benjamin paused for a moment, taking in the quiet grandeur of the gallery. Shadows stretched across the floor, hiding the unseen paths the abductor had taken. Yet Benjamin's mind was clear, each shadow, each silence, each minor inconsistency was a thread leading him closer to the thief. Tonight, the game of observation, deduction, and psychological insight had truly begun. Benjamin Hard had seen the invisible footprints, and every subtle clue brought him one step closer to unveiling the phantom of the gallery. The city outside slept, unaware that the hunt for a master thief was already underway. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the gallery, casting long, narrow stripes across the polished floors. Benjamin Hard sat at a small table, reviewing his notes from the previous night. Every minute of observation, every discrepancy in the logs, and every subtle gesture from staff members formed a growing picture, yet the identity of the phantom remained elusive. Benjamin began with the employees. Each person had their own routine, a set of habits ingrained from years of working in the gallery. Some were punctual to the minute, others prone to brief lapses in attention. He observed, questioned, and tested their reactions subtly. The youngest guard, normally confident, shifted uneasily when asked about security rotations. The curator's assistant's gaze lingered too long on a section of the storage room, almost imperceptibly betraying curiosity, or perhaps knowledge. Benjamin's mind traced patterns like lines on a map. The thief wasn't an outsider, it was someone who understood the rhythm of the gallery, the exact timings of human presence and absence. This was a predator who could move silently amidst people, invisible in plain sight. He also noted the psychology of risk. The phantom displayed audacity without recklessness. Each calculated decision reflected a deep understanding of human behavior. Benjamin knew that such a mind could be predicted by studying reactions to controlled stimuli. He carefully created small tests, adjusting a guard's routine slightly, subtly shifting exhibit arrangements, observing who noticed and how they reacted. The mental profile began to take shape. The phantom was methodical, intelligent, and patient. Likely someone with specialized knowledge, perhaps in art history or curation. Benjamin considered motives, wealth, obsession, or a desire for power through possession of masterpieces. The Phantom's choices were deliberate, targeting not just the most valuable works, but those that carried symbolic weight. Benjamin retraced the theft step by step in his mind. The abductor's movements, invisible to others, became clear as he imagined each decision, each hesitation, and each calculated risk. He studied every angle, potential blind spots in cameras, minor gaps in security, and the human element, guards distracted for seconds, employees preoccupied with guests. Each detail was a thread in the web he was unraveling. By midday, Benjamin had identified several key points of interest. Not everyone could have executed the theft. The suspect pool narrowed to those who had both access and knowledge, who could move unseen and manipulate circumstances. Each person he observed now carried the weight of suspicion, and Benjamin remained keenly aware of the subtleties in their behavior. Benjamin then focused on the human element of the crime. How did fear, curiosity, and instinct influence each employee's actions? Who exhibited nervous micro-expressions? Who tried to misdirect attention unintentionally? The answers revealed more than any camera or alarm could. As the day wore on, Benjamin Hard had pieced together a psychological map of the Phantom. The predator remained in the shadows, confident in anonymity, but Benjamin's understanding of human behavior and meticulous observation had brought the invisible closer to revelation. In the quiet of the gallery, amid priceless works and empty halls, Benjamin prepared for the next phase, anticipating the Phantom's movements and setting the stage for the chase. The invisible thief had met his match. Night had fallen over Manhattan, and the gallery's grand halls were bathed in the soft glow of security lights. Benjamin Hard moved silently among the exhibits, his presence barely perceptible against the quiet hum of the building. The first full day of observation had given him a mental map of the suspects, routines, and potential vulnerabilities. Now it was time to see the Phantom's patterns in motion. Benjamin started with surveillance logs, reviewing every access point, every minor fluctuation in sensor data. One door had registered a brief opening at an unusual hour, seconds that the staff had dismissed as a glitch. To Benjamin, it was a clue. A momentary anomaly could indicate deliberate action, the subtle signature of someone who understood both technology and human behavior. He checked the maintenance areas, corridors seldom used by employees or visitors. Dust patterns and faint scuffs on the marble floor suggested movement at precise intervals. The Phantom had navigated these hidden routes to avoid cameras and alarms. Benjamin catalogued every detail, imagining the thief's movements as a sequence of calculated steps. Observation of staff continued. Each employee's response to minor changes in routine was scrutinized. The security guard, when asked to verify a late-night rotation, hesitated for a fraction of a second longer than usual. The assistant curator's eyes lingered on certain rooms with a subtle intensity that Benjamin noted. Every micro-expression, every fleeting gesture became part of a mental dossier. Benjamin also considered the human psychology of risk. The Phantom relied on timing, distraction, and precision. They exploited attention lapses, knowing when someone's focus would drift. Benjamin orchestrated small tests, moving a decorative object, adjusting a display light, or altering a minor routine. He watched for instinctive reactions, subtle behaviors that betrayed awareness or familiarity. Hours passed as Benjamin reconstructed potential escape routes. The Phantom had not only stolen the paintings but had likely memorized every layout detail, stairwells, service corridors, emergency exits. The abductor's audacity was matched by foresight, a mind capable of navigating the gallery undetected, understanding both technology and human behavior with surgical precision. By midnight, Benjamin had identified a pattern. The Phantom appeared to favor routes that intersected only briefly with staff presence, often exploiting split-second distractions. They also demonstrated remarkable confidence in predicting human reactions, moving through the gallery as though anticipating the thoughts of those around them. Benjamin knew the next step was critical: set up controlled observations and subtle provocations to elicit a response from the Phantom. If the thief acted predictably under pressure, it would provide the evidence necessary to confirm suspicions and trace the route to the stolen artworks. In the quiet of the night, surrounded by priceless masterpieces, Benjamin Hard felt the invisible threads of the investigation tighten. The phantom of the gallery was clever, precise, and patient, but every mind leaves traces. Benjamin had found the faintest, most subtle ones, and he was ready to follow them wherever they led. Manhattan slept above, unaware that a silent hunt for a master thief was already reaching a decisive stage. Benjamin Hard moved through the dimly lit halls of the gallery with calculated precision. Each step echoed softly, a subtle contrast to the eerie stillness around him. The phantom had already demonstrated a mastery of timing, observation, and human psychology, but Benjamin was ready to turn the tables. The game was now not just about observation, it was about strategy, manipulation, and anticipation. He began by subtly altering routines and environmental cues. A display light shifted by a few inches, a guard schedule slightly rearranged, minor obstructions placed in seldom used corridors. Each small change was designed to test reactions, to elicit micro-expressions or instinctive behaviors from someone highly trained in concealment. Benjamin watched, patient and silent, as the staff moved through the spaces, unaware that they were part of an intricate test. Benjamin also scrutinized psychological tendencies. The phantom relied heavily on confidence, expecting routines to continue undisturbed. By breaking these patterns without creating obvious disruption, Benjamin could provoke minute errors, gestures, glances, or hesitation, that revealed familiarity with the gallery's secret passages. Each reaction was meticulously catalogued and analyzed. He observed the curator's assistant closely. Normally composed, they showed subtle signs of heightened awareness near certain rooms and service corridors. The young guard also displayed fleeting uncertainty when encountering the minor obstacles Benjamin had placed. It was a delicate dance, one that required patience and mental acuity to interpret correctly. As the night progressed, Benjamin identified a probable pattern in the phantom's movements. The thief favored specific corridors during low staff hours, utilized blind spots near maintenance areas, and approached the most valuable artworks with a calculated rhythm. Every decision, every movement, was methodical, but no method is flawless. Benjamin implemented a more complex psychological trap. He placed a mock display in a rarely monitored room, suggesting a high-value artwork that did not exist. Subtle security cues indicated activity in that area, designed to test whether someone was monitoring and ready to act. Hours of patient observation followed, watching for any signs of interest or covert movement. It worked. A faint shadow shifted along a corridor where no one should have been, a micro-expression betrayed recognition of the false display, and Benjamin's mental map tightened around the elusive phantom. Each subtle indicator brought him closer, confirming suspicions and refining the thief's profile, intelligence, audacity, and a singular understanding of human behavior and gallery dynamics. By the early hours of dawn, Benjamin Hard had drawn the invisible lines. The phantom's pattern was becoming clear. Every choice, every risk, every habitual path had been observed and predicted. The next move would not be passive observation, it would be confrontation, though it required finesse, strategy, and the patience of a master detective. In the quiet of the gallery, surrounded by silent masterpieces, Benjamin prepared for the next stage. The hunt was no longer abstract, it was about to enter the realm of human interaction, manipulation, and revelation. The phantom may have thought themselves invisible, but every shadow they cast had been accounted for. Manhattan remained unaware, but within the gallery walls, an invisible duel of intellect was intensifying, and Benjamin Hard was ready to claim the advantage. The gallery was bathed in the pale glow of the early morning sun, yet Benjamin Hard remained immersed in his investigation. The subtle manipulations of the previous night had begun to yield results. Shadows shifted in ways they shouldn't, tiny inconsistencies in staff behavior hinted at familiarity with routes and access points, and Benjamin's keen eyes caught details invisible to ordinary observers. He revisited the maintenance corridors, examining scuff marks and slight disruptions in dust patterns. One corner, often overlooked, bore the faint trace of hurried movement, just enough to suggest passage but not enough to be obvious. Benjamin noted it, cataloging it with the precision of a master analyst. Every detail mattered, every trace told a story, if only it could be interpreted correctly. Benjamin turned his attention back to the staff. Interviews were conducted subtly, casually, as if incidental. Questions about routine maintenance, security checks, and exhibit preparations revealed micro-expressions, fleeting gestures, and unconscious reactions. One of the assistants, previously calm, flinched at a minor adjustment in the lighting near a corridor. Another employee's gaze lingered too long on a rarely accessed service area. These were small but meaningful indicators, confirming patterns Benjamin had suspected. Next, he analyzed the surveillance data again. While the cameras had not recorded overt activity during the theft, minute anomalies became apparent under careful review. A shadow moved slightly ahead of a scheduled guard rotation. A reflection caught on a polished surface hinted at a presence not accounted for. Benjamin cross-referenced these anomalies with his observations, constructing a mental map of probable phantom movements. Benjamin also considered the psychology of the criminal. The phantom was confident, almost arrogant, in their precision. Yet confidence can be a double-edged sword, even the most meticulous individuals reveal their habits under subtle pressure. Benjamin had created these pressures, rearranged minor routines, adjusted security timing, and observed reactions, and they were beginning to reveal cracks in the phantom's carefully maintained persona. By midday, Benjamin had isolated several points of interest. Routes through hidden corridors, small gaps in security schedules, and moments when attention drifted all pointed toward a specific subset of employees with access and knowledge. The phantom was clever, but not infallible, and Benjamin's methodical patience was bringing him closer to discovery. He then retraced the theft in his mind, step by step, imagining the abductor's decision-making process, which paths were chosen, which distractions were exploited, which risks were calculated. Each hypothetical move was compared against physical evidence, behavioral cues, and digital traces. Slowly, an outline of the phantom's strategy emerged. As evening approached, Benjamin prepared for the next phase. The first real clues had been identified, tangible points to observe, test, and analyze. The hunt was no longer abstract, it was converging toward a precise target. The phantom's confidence would soon meet the unrelenting scrutiny of Benjamin Hard's intellect. In the quiet of the gallery, surrounded by priceless works and unspoken tension, Benjamin knew the invisible threads were tightening. Each step, each subtle indicator, each overlooked detail was a piece of the puzzle. And when all the pieces aligned, the phantom of the gallery would no longer remain unseen. The gallery was unusually quiet, the hush of early evening broken only by the faint hum of ventilation and the occasional footstep echoing across marble floors. Benjamin Hard moved with deliberate precision, reviewing the mental map he had constructed over the past days. The phantom's patterns were becoming clear, and it was time to test them, to provoke a response that would finally confirm the identity of the invisible thief. Benjamin began with subtle manipulations. A display case was repositioned slightly, a minor security routine was altered, and a seldom-used service corridor was left momentarily unmonitored. Each change was insignificant in isolation, but together they created a network of tests designed to provoke instinctive responses. The phantom, confident in their meticulous planning, would act, or at least react. He observed from shadowed alcoves and reflected angles, eyes scanning every micro-expression, every hesitation, every subtle movement. The curator's assistant passed near the service corridor, their gaze lingering for a fraction too long. A guard, adjusting to the modified schedule, briefly glanced toward a display they would normally ignore. Each minor reaction was carefully catalogued and interpreted, a breadcrumb leading Benjamin closer to the phantom's path. Benjamin then staged a more direct bait, a mock painting, highly detailed and realistic, placed in a secluded hall. Its apparent value was enough to draw attention without being obvious. He monitored reactions from multiple vantage points, noting not only who observed it, but how they responded, posture, eye movement, hand gestures. The phantom's instinctive recognition would reveal knowledge that only someone intimately familiar with the gallery could possess. Hours passed in silent observation. Subtle shadows flitted through corridors, movements too precise to be accidental, pauses too calculated to be casual. Benjamin noted the timing, direction, and sequence of each motion, reconstructing the invisible routes of the thief. The phantom was clever, but every action, every habit, every instinctual response left a faint trace, and Benjamin's mind was attuned to read it. By late night, Benjamin had a clear hypothesis. One individual's reactions aligned perfectly with the movements of the stolen artworks, the minor deviations in routine, and the psychological tests he had orchestrated. The phantom's behavior, though confident and skilled, had revealed a consistent pattern. Benjamin's trap had worked, subtle provocation had exposed the invisible. He then prepared for the final stage, controlled confrontation. Not with brute force, but with intelligence, observation, and leverage. The phantom was skilled in avoiding physical detection, but no one could hide from a mind capable of interpreting every subtle behavioral clue. Benjamin's next steps would require patience, timing, and strategic precision. As the first rays of dawn approached, Benjamin Hard reviewed every detail one last time. The gallery, bathed in soft morning light, seemed calm and untouched, yet beneath its serene surface, the invisible thread of investigation had drawn tighter. The phantom of the gallery had moved within their carefully constructed shadows, but Benjamin had followed every trace, every instinctive response, every subtle deviation. The time for the final confrontation was near. The invisible would soon be revealed, not by force, but by intellect. Benjamin Hard, master observer and strategist, was ready to unmask the phantom at last. The gallery was silent now, save for the faint echo of Benjamin Hard's footsteps against the marble floors. He had spent days tracing invisible patterns, observing subtle reactions, and reconstructing the phantom's movements. Tonight, every observation converged into a plan, a delicate balance of patience, strategy, and precision. Benjamin moved through the halls, checking security sensors, motion logs, and the placement of exhibits. Small adjustments had been made to test responses, and the results had confirmed his suspicions. One individual, an assistant curator with an intimate knowledge of the gallery's layout, had consistently shown subtle reactions aligning with the phantom's unseen maneuvers. Benjamin's careful psychological traps had worked, revealing the invisible patterns of a mind trained in stealth and observation. He paused near a seldom-used storage corridor, reviewing the mental map he had constructed. Every scuff, every misaligned frame, every hesitation of staff had been catalogued. Each minute anomaly told a story, the story of someone who moved through the gallery with knowledge, precision, and audacity. The phantom was no ordinary thief, they were a strategist, a mind accustomed to prediction and anticipation. Benjamin observed the assistant curator from a shadowed alcove, noting micro-expressions, shifts in posture, and subtle glances toward certain exhibits. These reactions were consistent with knowledge of the stolen artwork's locations and previous movements. Benjamin knew that the next step had to be careful. A direct confrontation too early could cause the phantom to vanish again, leaving the trail cold. He continued to manipulate the environment subtly, altering light levels, adjusting minor security schedules, and creating slight obstructions in low-traffic corridors. Each change was deliberate, designed to provoke instinctive behavior. Moments later, a faint shadow moved precisely where Benjamin anticipated, confirming his predictions. The phantom had responded exactly as expected, their actions revealing confidence, familiarity, and a remarkable understanding of human behavior. Benjamin followed the pattern, reconstructing the likely escape routes and temporary storage locations. His mind ran through every decision, every calculated risk, every timing choice the phantom had made. The assistant curator's reactions aligned perfectly with the path he had predicted, confirming not just presence, but intent, method, and skill. As midnight approached, Benjamin prepared for the final observation phase. All signs indicated that the phantom would follow a familiar route, relying on habitual patterns and predictable reactions from staff. Benjamin positioned himself at critical vantage points, ensuring that the thief's movements would be fully visible without alerting them to observation. Every subtle gesture, every calculated step, every instinctive glance could now be catalogued as definitive evidence. In the quiet of the gallery, surrounded by priceless masterpieces, Benjamin Hard felt the tension rise. The invisible adversary was within reach, and every carefully laid observation, every subtle trap, every reconstructed sequence had led to this moment. The phantom of the gallery had unknowingly walked into Benjamin's web, a web of intellect, patience, and precision that would soon reveal them completely. The city outside slept, unaware that the final stages of an invisible duel were unfolding within the gallery walls. And Benjamin Hard, master detective and silent strategist, was ready to unmask the phantom at last. The gallery's halls were eerily silent, illuminated only by the faint glow of overhead lights and the distant shimmer of city traffic outside. Benjamin Hard moved like a shadow, every step measured, every sense alert. After days of meticulous observation, subtle psychological traps, and careful reconstruction of movements, the moment had come, the confrontation with the phantom. Benjamin positioned himself near the corridor that led to the gallery's storage rooms. This was where the patterns of the phantom's movements intersected most consistently with minor gaps in security. Every previous observation pointed to this path. The thief, confident in their routine, would soon follow it, unaware that their every gesture was anticipated and monitored. Minutes passed. Then a subtle movement caught Benjamin's eye, a shadow flitted across the polished floor, careful but deliberate. He observed, cataloging micro-expressions, posture, and timing. The individual moved with precision, familiar with the corridors, yet unconsciously responding to the subtle manipulations Benjamin had laid out. This was the phantom, the invisible mastermind whose intellect had challenged him for days. Benjamin stepped forward, his presence calm yet commanding. "I believe you've been very careful," he said quietly, voice steady, eyes fixed. "But even the most meticulous patterns leave traces. And I've followed them." The assistant curator froze, recognizing the game. The expression was fleeting but unmistakable, surprise, realization, a hint of panic quickly masked by practiced composure. Benjamin continued, analyzing reactions in real time. "Your knowledge of the gallery, the routines, the gaps in attention, all of it was methodical. But method cannot hide everything from observation, patience, and strategy." For a tense moment, the thief said nothing. Every instinct, every calculated decision now met the unyielding scrutiny of Benjamin's intellect. The balance of power had shifted. The phantom, confident for days, felt the first hint of exposure. Micro-expressions betrayed uncertainty, subtle shifts in stance revealed awareness of the trap. Benjamin's predictions had been accurate, the invisible threads he had followed had converged. "You underestimated observation," Benjamin said, voice low, steady, commanding. "Patterns, reactions, tiny deviations, they all tell a story. I've read yours." The assistant curator's facade cracked slightly. Benjamin's patience, intellect, and strategy had cornered the phantom without a single aggressive move. The thief's confidence, built on precision and subtlety, faltered under the weight of meticulous scrutiny. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the phantom lowered their gaze, the unspoken admission of defeat clear in body language. Benjamin approached further, noting every gesture, every subtle indicator of surrender. No physical force had been necessary, the invisible had been revealed through intellect and observation alone. By the early hours, Benjamin had confirmed the identity and method of the phantom. The stolen artworks, though carefully concealed, could now be traced and recovered. The gallery would be whole again, and the master thief exposed, not by luck or brute force, but by the silent, precise mind of Benjamin Hard. In the stillness of the gallery, surrounded by priceless masterpieces, Benjamin allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The phantom had been unmasked, the invisible revealed, and justice restored, all through patience, intellect, and an unwavering understanding of human behavior. Morning light spilled across the gallery's polished floors, casting a warm glow over the restored exhibition. Benjamin Hard walked slowly through the halls, taking in the familiar grandeur, the silent beauty of each masterpiece now safely back in place. The phantom had been unmasked, the stolen paintings recovered, and the invisible threads of the heist finally unraveled. The assistant curator, now in custody, sat quietly, subdued by the weight of exposure. Benjamin observed without judgment, noting the subtle changes in posture and demeanor, the surrender of a mind that had relied on intellect and precision but had been bested by patience and careful observation. The criminal had not acted recklessly, rather, it was the accumulation of small deviations, the unnoticed reactions, that had betrayed them. Benjamin's approach had relied not on force but on understanding, prediction, and subtle manipulation of circumstances. He examined the recovered artworks, inspecting them for damage, authenticity, and arrangement. Each piece told its own story, and Benjamin felt a profound respect for the meticulous work that went into their creation. The phantom had appreciated this, moving with care and precision to avoid harm, but Benjamin's attention to detail had anticipated every step. He noted even the smallest anomalies in the frames and surfaces, marks that revealed method, timing, and intent. The curator approached, gratitude evident in her expression. "I can't thank you enough, Mr. Hard," she said. "The gallery, these works, without your insight, we would have lost them forever." Benjamin nodded, acknowledging the trust placed in him. The invisible can only remain unseen until patterns emerge. Observation, patience, and understanding reveal what others overlook. Benjamin reviewed the investigation in his mind, reflecting on the subtle psychological cues, the slight environmental changes, and the careful manipulations that had led to discovery. Each observation, each hypothesis, had been tested and refined. The phantom had been clever, skilled, and patient, yet no mind, no matter how precise, could remain completely hidden from someone trained to see patterns in chaos. He documented everything meticulously, sequences of movement, psychological reactions, and the final resolution. These records would serve not only for recovery but as a blueprint for understanding similar crimes in the future. The gallery's security protocols would be revised, informed by Benjamin's analysis, ensuring that gaps exploited during the heist were closed and that future attempts would be deterred. As Benjamin left the gallery, the morning sun illuminated Manhattan, streets bustling with life, unaware of the invisible duel that had unfolded in the quiet of the night. He walked with his usual calm confidence, hands in his coat pockets, mind already turning toward the next challenge. The phantom of the gallery had been revealed, but the city was full of shadows, and somewhere, another invisible adversary would await discovery. In the silence of victory, Benjamin Hard allowed himself a small smile. Justice had been restored, the unseen exposed, and the masterpieces returned. But the thrill of the chase, the delicate dance between intellect, observation, and human behavior, remained alive in him. Manhattan would sleep tonight, safe and oblivious, while Benjamin prepared for the next mystery, the next invisible adversary, ready to turn observation into revelation once again.